Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we're talking about project development assistance for the circular economy. My name is James. I'm working for Greenovate Europe in Brussels. We're a sustainable innovation network and proud to be dissemination partner in the HOOP project. So looking towards today's event, on screen you can see a little bit the agenda for today. So we've got plenty of time set aside for discussions and to answer your questions. That's definitely one of the main objectives of today's event, is also to engage with you. So don't be shy asking your questions to all of our speakers via the Q&A function in Zoom. Also, our speakers have some questions for you. So we'll be running polls throughout the webinar. So watch out for those coming up. And do take part in those. Just to mention before we start that this webinar is being recorded. We'll share the slides after the event, so you can catch up on anything you may miss or want to double check after the event. Right, so we don't have so much time, so let's get cracking already. So I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Elisa Gambuzzi from Setenma. She's R&D technician at Setenma. She's going to present an overview of the HOOP project and the HOOP PDA. She has a question for you. You should see now on your screen a poll question set by Elisa. Have you ever provided PDA yourself? If so, with what focus? Obviously, HOOP is providing PDA service to 8 Lighthouse Cities and Regions, as we'll explain. And it's interesting to know which among our audience are also working on PDA, and if so, which aspects. So get your answers in now. Okay, I think we can stop there already. Have a look at the results. So the largest percentage is for none of them. So maybe people who are interested or planning to be providing, but as yet have not done so. Out of those who are already working on giving project development assistance, mostly working on the business angle and also techno-environmental angle. So Elisa, you have a little bit of insight into our participants today.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm sharing my screen. Thank you very much for the introduction and welcome everyone. We were really looking forward for this webinar. So thank you also to James and Belen for the organization. And now I share my screen. You should be able to see it right now. Okay, I shall change the mode. Give me a second. Okay.
Okay, looks good. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Okay, let's start. So I have 10 minutes and I want to stick to them. First of all, for those of you that don't know HOOP very well, or at least can guess that we are about project development assistance, but about what? So on this slide, you have the answer, and it's about urban circular bioeconomy. The scope of the HOOP project is to help cities and regions to develop projects that will foster the valorization of biowaste like food waste or wastewater sludges into high added value, safe byproducts going beyond biogas and compost. For example, as you can see in this infographic, it could be biofertilizer, bioplastic, and etc. And okay, what budget do we have for this ambitious mission? As you can see, we have 9 million budget and almost 6 of them only on project development assistance. And with this project development assistance, we want to raise about 52 million of induced investment. We are a consortium of 23 partners from 10 countries, And we divide ourselves in two types of members. We have the territorial members that are our pilot territories, also called the lighthouses. So you will listen to me pronouncing lighthouses quite a lot. And then the rest of us are the so-called technical partners who are in charge of the PDA, of the stakeholder engagement and communication activities. As you can see here below, we are at 2/3 of the development of the project, and we haven't started from scratch. It means that the HOOP project lays its basis on what we call the 3 mother projects that are innovation action on technology upscale, while the HOOP project is an innovation action of project development assistance protocols. Okay, so basically in this slide, I want to show you briefly the project concept and what we do and how we do it, okay? So as I mentioned before, the main characters are the 8 Lighthouse Cities and Regions who are the HOOP demonstrators. And starting from the technological knowledge of the 3 mother projects, we propose them 17 bioprocesses, and then knowing their baseline and their ambitions, some of these projects, of these technologies were selected for the Lighthouses urban circular bioeconomy projects, on which the project development assistance is being provided. And beyond that, there are also activities for stakeholder engagement and mobilization. About the project development assistance, that you can see it's like in red font. In the next slide, I will show you a little bit more in detail how it works from a general point of view. And then in the next presentation, you will have more detailed insights on the different branches of the project development assistance. But as I said before, we are ambitious and we don't want to have an impact only in the 8 HOOP demonstrators, but we want the methodologies, the tools and the knowledge to be replicated across Europe. This is why we have an online platform that it's the hub, the Urban Circular Bioeconomy Hub, on which you can find many city or region, invite them to join our network and to test their level of circularity through their circularity label, participate in the knowledge exchange activity. And if you are a city or region or simply a curious person, have a look at our Virtual Academy. It's absolutely free. You just have to create an account, but it's super easy, like 30 seconds procedure. Okay, so the HOOP PDA, to the best of our knowledge, is a unique approach with different branches that are highly interconnected. And basically, if I have to resume it in a short sentence, I would say that it consists of identifying a feasible project, where this adjective is very important, feasible, and provide the needed capital. So we start from the very scratch, and we try to get to the point where you get the capital and you actually implement the project. And here you see appearing a scheme that looks quite linear, but this is an oversimplification of the HOOP PDA. But I mean, for you more or less to understand how it works. As I mentioned before, there was a stage of baseline of the city or region, and then the identification of the best available technologies for these cities or region according to their resources, to their ambitions, to the technology readiness level of the technologies, etc. And after that, there was the project definition. And then it starts the most difficult part. The PDA was defined in all its branches, depending on the characteristic of the project, the maturity level of the technology, the type of capital that was sought, the availability of the feedstock, etc., etc. And then there's the PDA execution that can still lead to 2 different outputs. For example, we can get to a project that is ready for investment or for the procurement of innovation, or a project that is cancelled because it's not feasible for any reason. And along the process, there are evaluation tools that we apply to understand if the project maturity has increased, both in terms, for example, of technology readiness, of bankability, of business models, etc. And you may think that it's quite difficult to manage the PDA. It could be, but if you have a well-organized PDA management body, it becomes easier. So in the HOOP project, we count on what we call the local HOOP committees. There was one for each lighthouse cities that then became one for each project, okay, because things got like more in detail and we needed one committee per project. And the local HOOP committee has a leader that is a technological partner with expertise on the technology. This is how it works for us and for the characteristic of the HOOP project. And there are other members that have that are chosen among the so-called technical partners that have different knowledges, like business, financial, public procurement of innovation, and then, of course, last but not least, the key staff from the city or the region. And with this, thanks to this committee, we can monitor and execute the PDA. Okay, I've been talking about lighthouses, so in this slide you can see who they are. And on the map, this is a screenshot from this morning, so you can see both the lighthouses as yellow spots, and also as purple circle, you see the HOOP network of cities and regions. Now we have almost 50 networks. These are the cities that already joined us and are following our progresses and joining our activities. So second to last slide is this one. I invite you all to join now the HOOP community. If you are or if you know of any city or region, tell them to join the HOOP network of cities and region. If you are a user, technology center, university, a curious person, investors, whoever, you can check our hub, be a user, and check out our virtual academy. These services are free, and this is very important for you to know. And you can see here on the right a picture of what happens when the HOOP consortium deploys its resources for the organization of study tours and other kind of activities. So again, join us. And this was my last slide. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you so much, Elisa, for this excellent introduction and overview. Now we all know what we're talking about and we're all on the same page. So yeah, if you have any questions for Elisa, please put them in the Q&A function.
James,
we will,
you're muted.
Am I still muted?
I could hear you. I don't think you were muted.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
hear you as well.
I also don't think I'm muted, so maybe it's a problem on your end, Elisa. Anyway, as I was saying, now we have
okay, can you hear me at least?
We can hear you, yes, Elisa.
Okay.
We heard your presentation perfectly, so no problems there. Yeah, we'll come back to you in case there's any questions for you. But in the meantime, we'll move now to the second part of the agenda, where we look at the different aspects of the PDA. So we're starting with our colleague Cristina Gonzalez Buch, who's project manager at ITENE. She's going to talk about the technological feasibility and environmental aspects of the PDA. So firstly, Cristina has a question for you, which is now on the screen. Maybe Cristina, you can read the question for us.
Yes, of course. So the question is, what components of the technical support do you consider the most important? So maybe it is the assistance to select the most appropriate investment project, or the assistance to select the best studies to carry out to demonstrate the feasibility of the different technologies or projects, or the development of technical studies like a proof of concepts or economic assessments, etc., the development of regulatory studies, or the development of environmental studies like life cycle assessment.
All right. We'll give you a couple more seconds, so get your answers in now, and then I think we can close the poll and have a look at the responses. Okay, let's close and see what the answers are. All right. Very high percentages, for mostly split across the first three. So about selecting the most appropriate project, select assistance to select the best studies, and then the development of the studies themselves. Is that something like what you'd expected, Christina, or in your experience?
Yeah, it is. It's what I was expecting. The answers are really equal in several aspects. So
Yes, it
all
shows
the
the
aspects are
importance
important. Yeah.
of all aspects. Yeah, indeed. Okay. Well, I'll let you get started with your presentation when you're ready.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen. Okay, so as James was presenting, this part is related with the assistance for the technological feasibility and environmental assessment of the projects selected by the Lighthouse Cities and Regions. So the objective of this part of the project development assistance is to provide all the required technical support to each Lighthouse City and region for the definition, the selection, and the effective implementation of the investment projects to valorize the urban biowaste for the production of the high-value bioproducts. So in this way, we can paving the way for the effective implementation of these projects in its Lighthouse Cities and region. So this kind of technical support is to be seen as flexible and adaptable according to the needs of the cities and requirements during the work project. So the work that we have already done during these months of the project, as first step, we developed a methodology to first identify the best available technologies in each Lighthouse Cities and region, and then select the projects to valorize the biowaste. So the selection of the best available technologies was made by means of a combined score obtained from a screening of the available technologies based on the baseline analysis and the urban metabolisms of each city, and also with an oriented scale approach, which was based on 4 different blocks, which were the problems that the technology can solve in the city, the scalability, the technical viability, and the benefits that the implementation of the technology can provide to the city. And finally, once we have this list of the best available technology for each city, together with the Lighthouse committees, the local hub committees, so in combination with the cities, they decide the projects that they wanted to implement. Then, once the cities were selected their investment projects, the next assistance that we provide to them was related with the selection of the appropriate studies required for the effective project implementation. So these requirements depend on aspects such as the level of maturity of the technology, as Elisa was explaining in the presentation, the local regulation, the investment capability of the cities, etc. So for the selection of the studies, the technological providers were developed logical diagrams, such this shown in the slide, for 3 different blocks, which were the raw materials, the technology, and the bioproducts. So going through this kind of diagram, we were able to select the study needed for each Lighthouse city, depending on their situation. So now that we are making in this project to provide this technical assistance to the cities is to develop the studies. Different studies are under development. One of them are already finished, and other will come later in the project. So some examples of studies that are being developing right now are the raw material characterizations, techno-economic assessments, proof of concepts, life cycle assessments, bioproducts assessments, or regulatory assessments. Finally, the lesson that we have learned from this technical PDA that we are providing to the cities to unlock these investments in circular economy is that this assistance should be very dynamic and is in continuous change. This is because the needs of their cities are changing based on the different governments, the global situation, etc. So we need, as technological or assistance providers, we need to be very flexible and adapt the PDA according to these changes and needs of the cities. That's a summary of the technical PDA that we have provided within HOOP, and thanks for your attention. And of course, I'll keep at your disposal if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Christina. Very good and clear overview there of your activities. We've got a couple of questions in, but I'm just going to keep them in my pocket for a few more minutes. We're going to have a little Q&A session after the next presentation. So we'll come back to that one. So I'm actually going to introduce now our next speaker, who's Evgenia Vogyatsidaki, who's a circular economy expert at Draxis. Evgenia has, first of all, a question for you, which is up on the screen. Evgenia, do you want to introduce your question?
Yes. Hello, James. Thank you very much. Here we go to the part of the business models. So the question is, what do you consider the most important parameter for a successful business model in the bioproduct sector? And we have just 4 different choices: the appropriate market demand, the low cost of production of the bioproduct, the mature technology to produce it, and the informed end users. Let's see what the audience thinks.
Yes. Send in your answers now, and then we'll see what comes out. You have any predictions, Evgenia, of which is going to be the most popular?
No, I don't know. To tell you the truth, they are all important. So
Yeah.
I expect that it will be, almost the same for all the choices. Let's see, maybe we'll have surprises.
Let's have a look then. Let's have a look what people have said. Okay. So quite a spread, but also quite a clear leader for market demand. I guess that's not surprising either.
No. When we discuss about business models, it always comes to, the financial and the revenues, and if it's feasible and so on.
Yeah, if there's no market for it, then there's no product. So
there's no project.
Exactly. Very good. Okay, well, thanks for your question, and thanks for everyone for their answers, and I'll let you make your presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we move on to the next part of the PDA that we have in the WHO project, that is the circular bio-based business models. Let's see. Sorry. Okay. So let's see what is the main focus in this part that we are leading in HOOP. Is at first to develop the business models of the lighthouses, and that's something we did through the identification of the main components of this business models. That means partnerships, target audience, the required resources, cost, revenues, and so on, and also help the lighthouses identify bottlenecks and how to tackle this. Another aim was to help them write a better investment proposal, to assess their business models. This is an ongoing task also in our part, and finally develop business plans And of course, what is very important is to collaborate with the other partners in the other, for us, the work packages, but as you see, you saw in the previous presentations, is the different parts of the PDA, and it's important that we all collaborate, and things sometimes are common for the different parts of the PDA. Here you can see in brief figures some of the tools that we used in this PDA for the business models. Some of these are, as I said, in collaboration with other partners. For example, the investment intake form, the project maturity level, the circular valuation method, and so on. Let's see some specific activities that were carried out in this business model section. We developed tailored lighthouse business models for all these 8 lighthouses, as Elisa has presented, and this is completed. We have developed also a circular valuation method. It's mainly a method for assessing their circularity for the projects. I mean, the circularity of their projects they have chosen. They have completed the first investment intake form. This is a questionnaire collecting information, translate this idea they have into this financial language. This is something that was done last month, as I remember, but this is something that will be repeated through the project because the projects mature, they change, so the information changes as well. We also investigate with them the funding and financial opportunities they have, market analysis if needed, and as I said, the assessment of their business models, which will be done through sets of tests regarding cost, revenues, financing and cash flows for 20 years of prediction. Let's see some challenges now that we have faced and we are facing. As I said, is important in order to have a concrete business case, at least to know some key components of the business concept. For example, the partnership, the resources, the main activities, which is the end product you want to focus, the target audience, and so on. But this was not always the case. The scope and the economic financial metrics of the projects are changing. We have a lot of projects at PML 1. PML is the project maturity level, and 1 is the lowest. So this is difficult for the maturity of the projects to increase, of course, and it is difficult to find the right funding opportunity if it's not something specific. As I said, the lighthouses have filled the questionnaire, this investment intake form, but there were missing information, of course, and they haven't identified the kind of studies they needed. The HOOP partners made suggestions, but again, when the project is not well defined, this is something that maybe is not the final concept or maybe not the most suitable studies needed. And another very important challenge is that although we have contact with the project developers, sometimes these developers are not responsible for, don't have the decision power. This is concerning the management and the future of the project. And this is difficult in the progress and the maturity of the project, and of course in developing a concrete business case, a business model. Also the market analysis and all these techno-economic studies, as you heard before, are conducted at the same time with the business models and the business cases, and these are, on the other hand, this should be an input for the development of the business model. So this is also sometimes a difficulty that all the parts of the PDA are ongoing at the same time. And closing, some lessons learned from this point of view, from the business model point of view, is that you have to start early with the description of the business case and engage the correct stakeholders. The scope, the consortium, and the tailored lighthouse business model of the project should be decided before the financial studies, and on the other hand, the techno-economic studies should be used as an input for the development of the business model. Another important thing is that when the project maturity is very low, it is difficult to provide a full PDA, for example, business plans or financial models, and mainly you have to focus on improving the maturity of the potential projects. And that takes us to the final point that the best thing is that to foresee different services for the different maturity levels of the projects, because we have seen that one solution does not fit all cases. So thank you very much, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you so much for the really informative presentation. So I'm going to invite Christina and also Elisa just to join us for a minute to answer a couple of questions. So if you have questions for Elisa, Evgenia, or Christina, please please get them in the Q&A box. We have a couple already come in. So this first question came in from Ed Weinberg, came in, I think, during Christina's presentation, but maybe Christina or Elisa could give us an answer. Question is as follows: can cancelled projects be revisited if there is new data, results, or technology advancements that overcome or nullify the project deficiencies or indicate a viable circular bioeconomy outcome? Is the question clear? Who wants to have a stab at that?
Okay, I can try to answer. Yes, definitely the answer is yes. It could be, but at least to our experience, we have never seen it in the development of the HOOP project. We have seen projects that have been put in standby, and that's true. It means they are not cancelled, but the conditions now are not the one for providing more PDA, because we see it makes no sense to go farther. But the project is not cancelled, because if these circumstances disappear, then it will become feasible to provide the PDA. But when you demonstrate that, for example, a project is not feasible for techno-economic viability, well, I think it's quite unlikely to see it coming back with strength and hope. I don't know if Christina, if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, I totally agree with your answer. So I think that, of course, we can change the decision of cancel a project, nor cancel to stand by a project when an improvement of the technology comes to the reality. So it's perfect.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for your answers. The next question, I think, is more aimed towards Evgenia. So question is from Freddie Leando. I'm going to split it into two parts, I think. So firstly, in the business plan, what do you consider for the profit generation? Is it the selling of the final product, or selling of the technology to produce such products?
It can be both. It depends what is the focus of the business owner. For us, it's fine to be any of the two options, but you have to know what do you want. If you want to sell services like the technology, the knowledge, it can be. If you want to sell a product, again, you can make a business plan, unless you know what you want to do. That's the important thing. And that was the difficulty in some projects in HOOP, that still they don't know what exactly they want to do.
Okay.
Can I add something to this question? I want to tell you about one specific case of one of the lighthouses. I like this question. What do you consider most relevant strength and weakness of the bioprocesses for the implementation of high TRL? So when the TRL is high, the investment usually is very high. So we have the case of a technology that was really mature. There was market, there was feedstock, but since the investment was very high, we couldn't find any brave investors that wanted to put the money to make it work. So this is also one of the weaknesses of higher TRL technologies, that they need a lot of money for the project to be implemented.
Yes, I fully agree with Elisa. High TRL means that you're ready. That means that you should be ready to accept costs and everything you need in order to finally do the investment.
Okay, I hope that answers those questions. If you would like further clarification or have more questions, then you're very welcome to add them in the Q&A section. But for now, here comes the follow-up. So this is because the return of investment is long, or because the investors are not informed? Is the follow-up question about the high TRL, high investment.
I would say that it's because it's the first one. I would say that because the return of investment is long, because usually investors are quite informed. Otherwise, they don't even start to talk about money with you unless they perfectly understand the technological risk and everything behind the project. But yes, I mean, my experience with investors is limited. I'm not in charge of the financial PDA, so maybe if someone else wants to add a comment.
I'm also not expert on the financial part, so maybe in the next session it will be better answered this, if it's not enough now from Elisa already.
Okay, we can maybe try and come back to that. I see another question, but I also see that Elisa is responding in writing to that one, so I think we can move along to the next part of the agenda. So Evgenia, Christina, Elisa, thank you so much. Now I'll introduce our next speaker, who is Marine Viale, who's innovation consultant at Baxen Company. And Marine also has a question for you. Would you like to introduce your question?
Yeah, sure. So the question asks what the most challenging aspects are for finding or financing circular bioeconomy initiatives. So pick an answer.
Great. Yes, some different options there. You have any predictions for which is going to be the most popular answer?
I have a feeling that it'll be more towards the capital seek.
Yeah.
I don't want to influence.
That's true. No, I think you might well be right. Often seems to come back as the biggest challenge. So let's have a look what the answer is, or what people have said. You were quite right that the most what is seen to be the most challenging aspect is the search for investment and capital.
Yeah. Okay, then I'll share my screen.
Great.
Oops.
Perfect. All yours. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so thanks for the introduction, James. Within the HOOP project, at Baxen Company, we're involved in several work packages or activities, but today I'll focus on one that deals with innovative financial engineering, where we design the financial element of the project development assistance offered in HOOP. So I'll just start with a quick overview. There are two main objectives here. The first is to establish a common evaluation framework that can be used by both public and private investors. And the aim of this framework is to promote or to facilitate the integration of investment schemes towards the urban circular bioeconomy. So this can be by providing advisory services, for example, to strengthen the viability of projects and making them more attractive for financing. And the second objective is to ensure that procurers in our lighthouses or cities comply with relevant regulations related to public procurement by preparing the necessary processes and instruments for implementing public procurement procedures. not only during HOOP, the project, but also for future tenders beyond the project scope. And we do this together with our partners RDA in Portugal and Sarabedin in Italy, which are also consultancy firms. So going back to this roadmap, yeah, this kind of summarizes the financial PDA journey, and on it you have the different tasks and activities that are involved and kind of, yeah, following a timeline. This is quite informed by the investment intake form that was created, which is a questionnaire for collecting information on an investment project idea and translating that into financial terms. And based on this forms, we had meetings and evaluations with other work packages where we kind of designed and fine-tuned this financial PDA roadmap. Overall, the goal of these different steps is to increase the maturity and the bankability of a bioeconomy project, because then it facilitates matchmaking opportunities between project promoters and potential funders, and all the while taking into account the unique requirements of yeah, different projects. Very briefly here regarding the activities, here you have like the different tasks that are contributing to the design of the financial PDA, covering things like investment readiness, due diligence, public procurement, open market consultation, with the aim of creating a common framework to accelerate the mobilization of green funding sources for realizing these projects. Then, yeah, a key thing here regarding milestones, one to highlight is the creation of the Circular Investors Board. Here, investors that have an interest on investment projects in the circular economy or bioeconomy can connect and align on best practices and decision-making tools to advise cities on how to mainstream investments in this field. Related to this, the board also organizes Circular Investors Days, which is a yearly event for technology providers and investors and city council representatives. They can exchange needs and requirements on bioeconomy financing to again lead to matchmaking opportunities between those seeking and those offering financing for projects to scale. Last year, the CAD was in Porto. That time, the workshop was more focused on testing tools developed within HOOP. And this year, we connected with another CCRI PDA project called Deciso that recently started, who was also organizing a workshop on circular financing schemes. And through discussions, we co-developed a joint event to maximize synergies. Now to wrap up with some learnings. One is to co-design and validate by involving experts from the early stages of the project to ensure that deliverables and activities are aligned with current market needs and challenges, to make sure that you're producing relevant outcomes. Second is to plan from an early stage a strategy for the dissemination and exploitation to make sure that you're creating long-term value and that the implementation of your PDA solutions will be successful. So for this, there can be co-creative brainstorming sessions with result owners to think about how to communicate and promote the project outcomes and how to introduce them within a more practical context. Then more specifically within for the financial PDA, it's important to define and track both financial and non-financial impact data generated throughout the project. And again, from an early stage, because through this monitoring, you can evaluate progress and performance and the overall impact of that you're generating relative to your baselines and assess whether you're on track with your objectives. And the final thing is to maximize impact. is to think about collaborating with relevant initiatives, because this opens opportunities for exploring synergies and co-creating something together. As I mentioned, we recently had a joint Deciso Hoop event for our second CID, and based on our experience, we can recommend engaging in these collaborations, because it can lead to wider outreach and help to validate your ideas and concepts and boost the impact of your efforts. So I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Marine. Very nice presentation. If you have any questions for Marine, then please add them into the Q&A, and we will come back to those in a few minutes. So don't go too far away. Thank you very much. But now I'll introduce our next speaker, who is Karina Diedrich, who's project manager at the CSCP. And you have a question for our audience.
Yes, so I'd be curious to hear your opinion. Which actor group do you think is the most essential to successfully implement a local PDA project? And I listed several options, and I'm very keen to see which one is picked most, or which ones.
I was going to ask you what your answer would be, but again, maybe we shouldn't guide people's answer too much. I'll let you maybe answer once we have the results.
It's a difficult pick. I guess I also would find it hard to choose, but at the same time, really interesting.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the answers then, see what people went for.
Okay, so indeed very mixed. Interesting. Scientists, not so much, but the rest seems to be quite important.
Poor scientists, they always never get invited to the party. Do they?
Yeah, private investor and public funders at the top, but maybe also because we just discussed this topic a lot. So then let me continue and lobby for the rest as well.
Very good.
All right, here we go. So stakeholder engagement in hoops. And as you might guess from the title, my answer would be all of them. I think it's really crucial for a successful project development assistance that really all the actors are involved, since all of them will in one way or another impact if the project is successful or not. And here we go. So what we do in Hoop is we have a dialogue platform, or actually 8 dialogue platforms. So in each of the lighthouses, which we call biowaste clubs, which is where we bring together all these stakeholders from the different parts of the value chain, so citizens, politicians, different public actors, waste companies, also scientists, anyone who really has to have a say on how to change this value chain. They are so far in the Hoop lighthouses. We hope that more biowaste clubs keep popping up across Europe, and are very happy to help others also in this process. And I'm going directly into what we are doing. My slides are a bit more wild than maybe the previous ones, but also stakeholder engagement is a colorful process. So I hope it's fine that you have a bit of a more wild slide here. So what are we doing in Hoop, and why is it relevant for the PDAs? The first things we did in the stakeholder engagement was, of course, a baseline analysis of how the value chains currently look like and what the different actors in there are facing in terms of challenges or also opportunities, wishes. This was linked to a stakeholder mapping to also understand all the different actors much better. And all of this really fed into the urban metabolism analysis that was also already explained earlier. So it was really a shared process, this in understanding the stakeholders, understanding their needs, understanding the value chain together with the We see analyses that were done for the PDAs. And then based on this, many stakeholder engagement activities are happening in the HOOP project and in the different biowaste clubs. A lot of focus currently, and that's why I picked many of these pictures, is on engaging the citizens. So we have a big part in HOOP that is on citizen science, and together with Science for Change, who is leading this task, we have a very nice app that is currently out in the lighthouses where citizens play a little game that you can also see in the middle, and are really asked to identify how they are currently sorting their waste, for instance, and to understand different parts of the waste streams in their city. And then once we gather all this data from citizens, citizens are also actively involved in analyzing it. And this is part of what happens in some of the biowaste clubs. So this is currently a really exciting process on really bringing the citizens together with all the other actors and understanding how each actor impacts at each stage of the value chain. Then we have a lot of education, awareness raising activities. I show some of the exhibitions that are currently in some of the lighthouses, again, bringing together different citizen groups and making really visible what these future biowaste products can look like and how to use them. So a lot happening on the local and regional level, but also beyond this. In HOOP, of course, we try to also aggregate all these experiences, all these best practices, lesson learned. We started this already in a previous project, the Scalibur project, where we developed so-called national action manuals. So now this we are continuing, upscaling also now in the HOOP project, trying to bring all these learnings very visible to more cities and regions. Also a nice initiative that started where several projects got together was the Roots initiative, collecting policy learnings and also seeing how these influence the different stakeholders. So also here we would be very keen to continue working, and I'm sure some of you were already involved in this. And then, of course, also many other HOOP activities on the more national replication happening. So many learnings, experiences to share there, which are hard to summarize in such few minutes. So I will be very short on this. Of course, on each of these aspects, we could expand a lot, and happy to exchange further if anyone is interested in future meetings. Of course, the stakeholder engagement also has many challenges, and they all, in one way or another, could also influence the PDAs and how successful they are. One, obviously, to pick just a few, one that is in such projects always difficult are the sometimes very long bureaucratic processes to get all the data, to get the decisions, to really get into the actual engagement activities. Also, as was mentioned before, limited financial resources. Also the resources of the local actors or the capacities to engage in such activities. Also oftentimes they are very conflicting interests maybe of stakeholders, or also conflicting priorities due to external factors. The last years, for instance, the COVID crisis was one that made it very difficult to get the motivation and interest to the bioeconomy topics. But then also, of course, we had many learnings and success factors that made it still possible to get good stakeholder engagement in HOOP and in similar projects. A key one definitely is to build trust with all actors. That's also why we work so much with citizens and want to have them as a part of it, to be very pragmatic, hands-on, show that things are possible on local level. And many more learnings and that I could go into. Certainly also one why we are all here to get today is to build on existing networks and to connect to all these other projects and speak with one voice. So I guess that's why we also all want to connect more today. Yeah, and many more learnings I could go into, but I think I'm already running out of time, so I will stop here. For people who want to know more, we're happy to be in touch.
Thank you so much, Karina. I know you might be, you've been asked a lot of times to tell the story of your biowaste clubs. And we appreciate that you took the time to tell us the story again with such energy. We have already a question, and I invite you to send more questions in for Karina, but we're first going to have the next presentation and then answer your questions, try and try and compile a few questions together. So thank you, Karina, for now. We'll hear more from you later. And now I would like to introduce our next speaker, Miguel Angel Suarez, who is an R&D engineer at Setenma. And he's going to tell us more about the overall management of the PDA. So good afternoon, Miguel Angel. You have a question for the audience. Would you like to introduce that?
Yes, there are very simple questions, but very difficult.
Okay. What is the most important question you expect the PDA to answer? Indeed, yeah. Sounds simple on the face of it. Okay, so let's see what people think. More or less what you expected?
Yes. Actually, that's the purpose of a project, isn't it?
To make business.
Yes.
At the end of the day, yeah, it's a pretty essential part, isn't it? Okay, well, yeah, please, if you want to say more about that, otherwise I let you start your presentation when you're ready.
Yes, I will share my screen. Can you see in presentation mode?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. We have heard the experiences from different parts of the project development assistance in HOOP. There are like different parts, different pieces of the same puzzle. And when moving in a project so multidisciplinary as it is HOOP, sometimes we need an overall approach to see the whole picture of the project itself. So, as was previously said, I think by Karina, that sometimes the ones who are taking the decisions are not the ones who are developing the project. So, in many cases, these decisions depend on very simple questions, but pretty difficult questions like about a project. What is this? What is this for? How much does it cost? So these key answers are crucial for making understand and to solve all the doubts possible to make the decisions to go ahead and unlock the investments and unlock the decisions. As it was previously mentioned by my colleague Elisa, HOOP is focused on cities, on 8 lighthouses, and it is required to have a PDA management, which we have chosen to do through our local HOOP committees. At the very beginning, we had an approach which was focused on the city, and this was very important, having the technical partners and the key city staff. But then, with the evolution of the project, we have realized that it is needs something more specific, an approach more focused on the project itself and covering all the different parts of the PDA, the business model, the financial, the legal, not only the technical. The implementation roadmap, as previously explained, has a first phase of diagnosis, knowing what is the most suitable projects. And here there is a difference, because in some of the lighthouses there was like a previous experience, like a background that was pushing the decision to some. In other cases, we had to start from scratch. We took much longer, as explained by Cristina. And once that there is this project definition, it is needed to define what is going to be the PDA, what are the points that are missing, and how to execute it. Because at the end, it is very important to coordinate not only the technical studies, to fill all the gaps in the different disciplines, and to execute. And then to also to evaluate at the same time if what we are doing has any sense, because as it was mentioned before, it might happen that the project is not feasible and can be cancelled, or it can be even cancelled without being feasible, but for other reasons. And there is the possibility that with the PDA, we arrive to the point that maturity might not be so high to be ready to be presented for investors or for procurement, but it might be suitable, for example, for funding, for horizon codes. So it's a point that we need to take into consideration. And the most important thing, the customer decides. The city is the one who is choosing. And this is not always necessarily improving the indicators, but it's the choice. So in general terms of PDA management, we have learned several lessons. We are still learning every day. The first is that for understanding the context, the ecosystem of the city, it's crucial to have a city approach. That's why we started with local hub committees based on the city, understand all the urban metabolism, all the baseline, understanding who are the stakeholders, how it is structured, the waste management system, the water management system. And once that a direction is chosen, shift to the project dimension. Then a point very important that was mentioned in stakeholder engagement, but it can be applicable to everything, is to build a relation, to build trust between the technical partners and the city, to have a fluent communication, to have regular meetings, exchange of emails. It's very important, the communication, because in this way, we can know what is needed from the side of the city. The city can understand what is required to make the PDA to go ahead, and building the trust, building the relation is really a key step for the success of the PDA. And besides this, the coordination of the areas, because it's not, especially in a project like HOOP, that is multidisciplinary, but all those disciplines are going together into a same project, into the same projects. So it's very important, the coordination, because, for example, the technical part needs to know information from the financial needs to know details from the business models. Everything is interconnected and they are not isolated one from each other. So it's crucial to coordinate all the areas, all the actors inside the PDA team. And in addition, a word that was mentioned before by Christina, flexibility. We are in a constant change of regulations. What yesterday was not allowed today might be allowed, and vice versa. It might happen that events like war, like pandemics, it might happen that there are decisions taken that suddenly one feedstock is not available anymore, or that it's popping out another feedstock that is getting more interest, new technologies. So for the one who are managing the PDA, it's very important to get these moves. It's very important to have a roadmap, but also, as happens with the GPS, sometimes you need to reconfigure it constantly. So this is one of the characteristics of HOOP. And also in the PDA implementation, there was a word that it was repeated several times in previous presentations, that is to have a very clear and early definition of the project, what you want and how you want, because in the solution, to avoid much time lost in just defining things. If you have very clear, or if the city has very clear what they want, go for them, and things go much faster. And maturity is is obtained much faster. Then, in connection with what I was mentioning before, the financial part, the business models part, should be considered from the very beginning, because it's very important, for example, to be sure that we make a product that is going to have a market, that someone is going to buy it, or just to be sure that it's legal. Something as simple as difficult as that. The financial part, to know if the capacity of the plant is big enough to make profit. So these aspects of financial and business models needs to be considered since the very beginning. And as it was mentioned before, for providing PDA in these areas, in business models, financial, public procurement, it's needed a level of definition, of maturity, to know what product you want, to know what are you going to feed, to know more or less what you want to do, because otherwise it's difficult. And there is another point that sometimes there are technologies that are feasible, coming from maybe not so much with startups, but it's more often happening with projects that they have demonstrated a TRL, but when shifting into another feedstock or when shifting into some new conditions, before jumping into a bigger scale, you need to be sure that that is working. So you need to ensure the technical feasibility. And sometimes this requires making analysis, making experiments, maybe to provide something on pilot scale, and this takes time and can be a bottleneck, especially if there is not a previous background before a pilot available, knowledge before. So this is something that is one of the lessons learned in this project. And then the most important, the most challenging, and probably the most interesting is that the PDA is unwritten. It's not a recipe of how to do it. Every project is different. The project developer might be different. Public companies, startups, waste management companies, the ecosystem of stakeholders is different. The needs are different. The market sectors should to do something different. So the requirements are different, and it needs to be really a tailor-made suit, not only for each city, but for each project. So these are just some of the lessons. We have learned much more, but this is more or less the key. And if I had to summarize, one thing is that PDA is unwritten. You need to write your. So thank you very much for your attention, and we are on at your disposal for answering questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miguel Angel. Very interesting lessons. So we have a little bit of time left. We're going to run till 3:30 if needed. So firstly, there was a question for Karina, which I see you've answered somewhat within the Q&A written, but maybe you can give a short summary. You can tell us a little answer to the group.
Yeah, sure. So the question was about, since there are many Horizon projects that include stakeholder engagement, how we can collaborate better, or how other projects can collaborate with HOOP on stakeholder engagement. So thanks a lot for the question. I think it's a really relevant one, since we don't want to all do similar things in different projects without aligning them. So in HOOP, actually, this is also a big part that we see in all the lighthouses. I mean, we call them lighthouses because they already do a lot. So obviously they also have lots of other projects, and already in HOOP, we are also trying on the local level to always align these activities and make sure it's not all isolated, but we really connect across projects. And same way on national level, also when in HOOP we do these national replication activities in all the 8 countries where the lighthouses are. Surely there are many projects that many of the participants today are working on that we are not yet aware of, but that we should be and that we should align to. So I would be really happy if you get in touch with us and we align these as well. Also, very happy to align these to our national replication workshops, events, to make these things together. I think that's much more impactful than doing it separately in each project. So please happily get in touch with us on this. Yeah, and also in HOOP, of course, we are trying to aggregate all our learnings, best practices, all the tools, templates, methodologies, whatever is being developed in terms of stakeholder engagement. So of course, you regularly find this in the different HOOP channels, but also there. Happy for feedback, happy to see if others want to use them and to support and we'd be happy to support in really using all the things that are being developed. So yes, please get in touch with us on this. Yeah, like James said, I also posted in the chat the answers, including contacts. So I think there's a lot we can organize together. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you very much. I think at this point I would invite all of the panelists to put on their videos and rejoin us just for the last few minutes to answer some pending questions. So we have a question here from Paolo. I'm not sure exactly who is the best person, so I'm just going to throw it out there and hopefully one of you will bite. The question is the following: are the externalities of each project accounted for in each project cost evaluation? Don't all speak at once. Yeah, maybe Evgenia.
I could say yes.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm not sure what they mean about the externalities. I mean exactly, but generally, if we're conducting a techno-economic study or a financial model, or we're looking for the cost of a project, it should be taken into consideration. Of course, it depends on the case, but yes, generally, it should be taken into consideration. As deeper a study goes, then more information needed and more things are taken into account.
Okay, well, I hope that answers the question. If the question would like some more details or can specify more about that question, then please feel free. Otherwise, another general question: which type of circular bioeconomy projects entries are currently trending? The questioner gives examples of pollutant, nutrient recovery, carbon capture, etc. Trendy circular bioeconomy projects. Maybe I'm looking towards Elisa or Miguel Angel.
Okay, so regarding what we are observing in the lighthouses and the project development assistance, lighthouses are generally interested in high TRL because public authorities don't want to risk public money in a technology that maybe has no future or at the moment is not mature enough to be brought to the market. And so I would say that this is like the first request is like, is it ready, you know, for the implementation? And then regarding the kind of technologies, biochar is is the guest star, I would say, of the PDA's projects, and soil application like compost, even if HOOP is trying to go beyond compost, and yes, and digest stage, you know, the classical soil amendments or soil improver or fertilizers. And then biogas production for the reason that we all know for the current geopolitical situation.
Okay. Yeah, I see now you and also our colleague David Silva had put some answers there in the by the written console, so there's some more answers there. For the previous question, there's clarification that was related to the environmental externalities, whether those costs are included in the cost evaluation. I don't know if anyone could say anything more about that, given that clarification.
Yes. As previously said, they
Yeah.
are included in the level that the discussing for the project. It depends in what level we are doing our studies and the PDA that's provided. If the project has a lot of information, is quite mature, then of course we can take it into consideration. If we have less information are taken into consideration, and we make the assessments and so on.
Okay, the next question coming in is regarding to what extent the regulatory framework Fit for 55 package is impacting your projects. I don't know if you had any aiming to produce biomethane. This regulation will only allow its use for heavy duty vehicles, according to my understanding. If anyone can talk about that, I don't know if many of the projects are looking at fuels, but somebody can tell me more.
Well, actually, it has not affected too much HOOP, because HOOP is based, or the scope of HOOP is the material valorization rather than the energy valorization. So even though we have realized that there is a growing interest on biogas, biogas itself as energy production is not within the scope of HOOP. So therefore, it has not affected too much the HOOP PDA.
Okay, thank you. If you have any more questions, then keep them coming in. Otherwise, question from my side. We had in the sort of introductory text to this webinar, we talked about how project development assistance is not really a new concept, and it's been used quite a lot in the energy sector, especially in the last years, through EU projects and otherwise. And I wondered if you had any thoughts on what possible additional challenges or what might be different from implementing in the energy sector compared to the circular bioeconomy. Have we stumbled upon some new hurdles by working in this sector? Does that create some complications, or have we found some extra peculiarities because of this focus that we have in this project? Or you can all look at me blankly as if I've asked something very stupid. It's also fine.
Well, actually, the sector is starting, and some of the deliverables that are being generated are like the first on their class, especially things like the evaluation of the maturity level, business models, and the due diligence. They are like first. It's a sector, it's an area that is starting, that is expected to grow more, because it's one of the objectives, the strategies of Green Deal, and we are learning. But it's like with the renewable energies. At the beginning, it was not too defined, and it's a process of standardization, of control, and in this way, with the tools that we are developing, with the work that we are doing, we are trying to do that, to standardize, and also to decrease the risk that sometimes is associated to something that is completely new and innovative. And another of the things that we have observed is that in many cases the circular bioeconomy, it's starting in the area, in the sector of the waste, either urban waste or industrial waste, but it's based on the waste. So one of the challenges is to do this shift from waste into raw material. So there are many things that need to be implemented that we are realizing, and it's something to consider. This is one step. Hope is one step in a very long way to implement it.
Okay, I think I'm going to ask a final question and invite you all to give a little comment on that. If you had to give one piece of advice to a colleague who's maybe starting another project, a PDA project elsewhere, or to your past self, that you could pass a message to yourself of 3 years ago, what would be that nugget of knowledge or learning that you would pass on? I think we'll go around the room, so we can go in order of appearance today. So Elisa, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Well, I would say that the most important piece of advice is to establish a fluent and constant communication with the interesting actors at city level, because when we think at the city or regional level, we have many kind of actors, and as my colleagues said before, you have to reach those that have decision making. Otherwise, the PDA becomes an endless process where decisions and suggestions and doubts go back and forward, and it goes to no point. So I would say that in the HOOP project, we are quite lucky, but we still have had to address some of these issues. So before starting a project about PDA, be sure that you are going to talk to the right people, and the PDA will have much more possibilities to succeed.
Wonderful, thank you. Christina?
Yeah, of course, communication and management is very, very important for a successful of the PDA. And as I said in my presentation, I think that we need to be as flexible as possible, because the cities and regions are always under changes. So we need to be adaptive.
Evgenia?
Adding to what the previous speaker said, I would say that for a PDA, there should be different kind of PDAs, let's say. It cannot be one solution for all cases. So be prepared for different types of needs. That's very important, because as Mikel said, it was unwritten, the PDA, and now we're trying to do this standardization, let's say, this defining who needs what. So if you can do it at the beginning, it will be very helpful.
Great. Marina?
Yeah, I think just to build up on what was already mentioned regarding the communication and the planning, is to also set up a system to track and monitor your progress and your performance against the milestones and the objectives that you set from the beginning, because that'll just make the whole process a lot easier. And yeah.
It's you, Karina.
All right, I'll also build on what Elisa just said, to talk to the right people. Yeah, I think this is really quite an intensive process of really understanding the motivations and the challenges of each actor. And maybe one that in HOOP was at the beginning particularly difficult, because we were in lockdowns and we couldn't really talk to many stakeholders in live. But I think really this trust building at the beginning, so that all actors are also really open to speak about the challenges, is really crucial, and really understanding this local, also maybe cultural context, why some things are on the table or are not on the table but should be. I think that it's really important to invest enough time there, and not only to talk to people but really listen a lot to people, and then really getting to the core of it.
Wise words. So I think it looks like the final word has been left to you, Miguel Angel.
Well, besides all the advices that my colleagues have already given, I would say that one key aspect is to understand very well what is the ecosystem, to listen to the customer, listen to the city, and in this way you can understand much better. If possible, go there and see yourself, because there is the reality, and there you do everything, you build the trust, you find many of the answers there directly.
Great. Well, that just left to me then to say thank you to all of our speakers today for their time and their great contributions. And thank you to all of our attendees for your presence and also your engagement in the webinar today. Thank you to the colleagues at Revolve. They've been doing all the support behind the scenes and the promotion of the event, doing a great job as always. And the final call to stay in touch with the Hoop project and stay in touch with us and make the most of the Hoop resources. Elisa has already mentioned the hub, the Hoop hub, and the Hoop network. And we have lots of events coming up, so we hope to see you again at one of those future events. We wish you best of luck with your own project. And yeah, in the coming days, we'll send a follow-up with the slides and the recording, so you can revisit any parts you may have missed. So that's it for today. Thank you all very much, and see you next time.